Do you want to go over what your thought process is, or are you just going to throw him right into it?
No, I'm going to throw him right into it, Renee.
He's already thought about how he wants this to go.
I remember years ago, I came out from California to visit, but also to speak at the GCC, like a Saturday Night Live. GCC had a Saturday night thing, and I was the speaker, did my thing, woke up Sunday morning. We were staying at Danny's. Everyone was there. And I remember there was a little commotion in the house that morning because you had just gotten a phone call about Life losing its accreditation. Do you remember that? I mean, I know you remember that, but do you remember that?
I remember the Life losing its accreditation.
Yeah, that's how I remember the start of that. Like that was Saturday night, did my thing, and then Sunday morning, it's like, oh, not that my talk was anything amazing, but I remember that morning. That's the only reason I remember my talk. But then Life lost its accreditation, and through the years of working to regain accreditation, there was one point where I remember you had a board meeting, and it was with...
Are you talking about the board meeting we had with the Kaiser Collegiate out of Florida?
Yes, yeah, Kaiser Collegiate. And there was an offer to pretty much assume the campus and all of that.
That's correct.
And then we'll cover this better so you can better tell the story. But as the deal was being cast on the table, the way I remember hearing it was everyone was considering it and ready to sign, and you said, what did you say at that point?
I said, NA did not bring us this far to lose the school. I said, so you can't do this without my vote, and you don't have it.
How does one, what I want to unpack is, how does one get to that point in their life and have the presence of mind and the thought process that enables you to say that? That's what I think is so amazing about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's a moment where all of your life brought you to a moment to be in a decision of that. And then that's where we're going to go back to is, what was your life experience? What things happened? So we're going to go backwards now to the point to when you got to that place to be able to stand in no, even though maybe everybody else at the table was, yes, I think, this is what we got to do. But you were like, no, we didn't come this far. And then we'll get into where things went from there. But so we can kind of go backwards on where you started in chiropractic. Kind of let's go down through your life with chiropractic, because it's those high moments of when you look at somebody, it's like, oh, wow, look how strong and the strength of it. But it's that space that led up to that, to be able to be in that, to stand on your truth of it.
Ever since I've known you, I've always thought about how you look at things differently. And let's just say that whole room of people dealing with the school, everybody, or most of them, were probably looking at things from a certain way. And you look at things differently, find a solution, or by virtue of looking at it in a different way. Do you realize that about yourself? Like, is that something that you think about, or you just think about, what does this mean? Or what?
I think I think about what is the task at hand. I don't think of that I'm different than anybody else. I've always told the story, if you're in a relay race and someone hands you the baton, your job is to run. You don't think about the task, you run. And everybody plays a part in the relay race, but you have a particular part you play.
So do you think that, is it a learned to some degree, or is it something that you felt like as a kid? How?
The interesting thing is we're talking like this is about chiropractic, and it wasn't about chiropractic for me. And I have to go back to where I received a revelation of what my life was about, and that's when I was 14 years old. And everything, whether it was chiropractic, whether it was Inner Winners, whether it was BJ's writings, whatever, it was all based on this revelation I had at 14.
Let's talk about that. Let's go there right now. What's that revelation?
Well, it's an interesting thing is when I was 13 years of age, I was living in the Detroit metropolitan area, and coming from a Catholic background, it was important that we went to a Catholic school, which I had done all my life, and we were bused into the inner city. And when I was in that school in the 9th grade, there was a Passionist priest that came and gave a retreat. It had such an effect on my life, impelled me that I wanted to be able to do the same thing for other people. And at that particular time, the only venue I saw was becoming a Passionist priest. So then, when I was 14, I proceeded to leave home to pursue that. It was a retreat was to reconnect people back to their source, bring them back to the purity of what they were. That's how I saw it. 14, I took off, but I came back, spent my 11th and 12th grade in a Catholic school, and decided to become a chiropractor. My dad, all my life, always said, become a chiropractor. If you can't make it in chiropractic, you can be a masseuse or masseur or whatever, because it's the same thing. Which I had no idea. And this is innately giving me direction, so I ended up at Palmer in 1957. And when I was at Palmer and I heard the philosophy for the first time about universal intelligence, innate, I already knew it, and I knew I came home. And when I learned about chiropractic, was that chiropractic was a way to reconnect the spirit and the physical again, to reconnect people back to source. In chiropractic, we call it innate. Religiously, people might want to call it connecting people back to God. That's where my life continued to take off. And everything I've done, whether it was in chiropractic, whether it all came back to that one revelation that happened to me when I was 14. I've always just assumed the task at hand, and I've never had any really thought of, should I be doing it, shouldn't I be doing it? I was never a type of person like when I was in high school or college that was a leader of anything. I just had certain beliefs, went through Palmer College, and just enjoyed going through, becoming a chiropractor with the hope someday to see scads of people, like all kinds of people. Never had much thought about making money. I always used to think if I could just make $10,000 a year, I'd be so happy, it'd be really nice. But I wanted to see hundreds of people. I had no idea how you would do it. Proceeded from there. When I got out of school, I was 20 years of age. So I wasn't old enough to have a diploma yet. You had to be 21 to get your diploma. and then I had to get a license. So I went around looking for someplace for a chiropractor so I could work in their place. I didn't care if they paid me. I just didn't want to be selling shoes at a shoe store as a chiropractor. And I found a chiropractor. They brought me in. And I then worked to get my license. At that time, you had to have a basic science, and they didn't have national boards. And basic science meant that you took the same exam the medical doctor, osteopath, and chiropractor took. And in Michigan, no chiropractor could ever pass the exam. The only place that there was a couple states, Iowa, they were there, and New Mexico. So the New Mexico representative on the basic science was Dr. Riekman, which I did not understand until 9 months ago. This was Dr. Riekman at Life's father.
Oh.
And because he was the first chiropractor ever to go into a basic science board, enabled me to be able to pass the exam out in New Mexico. And the interesting thing about that is he gave an exam in pathology, and the osteopath gave it exam in anatomy, and microbiology, biochemistry, and physiology were given my PhDs. They're all essay exams. And I passed all the essay exams from the PhDs, and the osteopath and chiropractor flunked me in their test. So then I went back again and took the anatomy and pathology and passed it out, and the chiropractor flunked me again. So then I started finding all my connections. I might have a chiropractor, so can't they become an exception for me? And so I had to go back and take pathology again, and I passed it the third time. And I always had a burr in my side about this chiropractor who flunked me and what he did to me. And then it wasn't until like 6 or 9 months ago I finally found out it was Dr. Riekman's father. He was the first chiropractor to get on a basic science board. And because of that, because he went and did the work to get in that position, I became licensed to become a chiropractor. This is just a side note about the interesting things that happened. So I was in Michigan practicing chiropractic, and all chiropractors seemed like they were old people. So I had decided, well, I'll organize the young chiropractors. So I made contact with all the young chiropractors around Michigan, around the Detroit metropolitan area, and organized a meeting that we'd meet every other week.
So wait, how old were you then?
So I'm now 21.
Okay, you're 21.
You're old. You've already been at it for a while.
Yes. So,
Okay.
So I started 64. No, I was 24 now.
Okay.
It must have been. No. 22. So
Okay. All right.
Give or take it.
You're in your young 20s.
Yeah, very young. So I organized. It didn't matter what their philosophy was. They were chiropractors, and I just accepted chiropractors. They're all good dudes. We'd take turns meeting in all their different offices where there were national grads or whatever else was going on. And it just evolved through a period of time. And I just saw I was the type of person that I was online chiropractic. As far as I was concerned, chiropractic didn't have modalities, but I accepted people that have, but I did not put any energy into making sure they could have their modalities. And then there was a time I started advertising, and you weren't allowed to have ads in yellow pages and do all those things. And I had done advertising, and I had the Attorney General's office examiners coming out on board investigating me.
Wait, you weren't allowed to advertise in the yellow pages?
For your office? For your office?
You couldn't
as a
advertise
chiropractor?
As a chiropractor. You couldn't put that in the ad in the yellow page or anything. You just have your name. And so when they came in my office, I just literally threw them out. I told them if they want to get me, they had to go to court. It's just like,
so
he's
at the
had
ripe old age of.
I'm just going to say, so you've had that inside you since you were very young.
Yeah. The point is, I had a lot of dumb guts. I belonged to the state association, and I didn't like the direction they were going, and their executive secretary. So I got up. I called for a vote that they fired the guy. So they threw me out of the organization because I was considered unethical. From that position, I was using Sign Out advertising, my office, which was Sid Williams' program. He started the DE meetings 2 years later, went to DE, got inspired because it's all about lasting purpose, DE, the dynamic essential awakening, the innate within, create your life in that position. The same thing that I remember why I wanted to become a passionate priest is to connect people back to the source. So now I'm going to DE, and I'm seeing what happens. All of a sudden I hear a good friend of mine, who I love dearly, Weldon Deerfield Leg Check. His father's the one that started that, Roman Deerfield. I used to go golfing with him. He was like a mentor. But he got on a radio station and said, because he was president of this mixing organization, because they had all merged and there was only one thing, he says, we're going to go after everything you can get. So I was out in Davenport, Iowa for a lyceum, and I met with DE chiropractors, and then there was a small group of extremely straight chiropractors, Grostic practitioners, and ICA people, and I asked, would you like to have a meeting? I think we need to start our own organization. They agreed. So we went to this group that was called the Michigan Chiropractic Council. There was 12 members. They were the Grostic people, and we met with them, and I put out my thought as, this is what I want to do. With me, I asked Roger Odell to come with me because he graduated in Logan the same time I graduated in Palmer. So he came with me, and he said, do you mind if I bring Ian Grassa with me? And I said, yeah, you can bring him. Well, Ian Grassa, he was they used to go out drinking together and all this kind of shit. It's like something else. Yeah, bring him with you. It doesn't. He can hang along. So, anyways, I met with this Michigan Chiropractic Council group, this Grostic practitioners. Told them what I wanted to do. I said, I want to use your charter to start a new organization, but we can't use your name. So you have to agree to give up the name. You have to agree that we'll use your charter. And so they said, okay. So I went into the basement with Ian and Roger and waited for their answer. They came down and he says, we agree. We'll give up our name. You can take the charter and we'll form this new organization. I said, thank you. We'll call it the Michigan Chiropractic Council. I wanted them to be willing to give it all. Mm-hmm. From that, we decided to have our first convention. We formed at that time, way people, did printing was through mimeographing. So I had electronic stencil mimeograph. We used to put out 40 or 50,000 of these tabloid things, or mimeograph sheets, 8.5 by 17 every.
Where you pour the fluid in the top.
You put this stuff, and you have this thing wrapped around a cylinder, and after a while it's crooked and everything else. After you do 30, 40,000 of them, and we do it in gold color. So anyways, I put this out that we're having a free convention in the state. We're going to do this for free. We get the Board of Examiners put out this letter that originated out of Flat Rock, Michigan. They don't have approval to give, their program has not been approved by their board. So I just put it don't matter. We're putting it out and we're doing it. And at that meeting, 450 chiropractors show up. And it just absolutely wiped out the other organizations' money sources and stuff. We had a basket in the back like a church, and we asked them, put the money in the basket for whatever you think this was worth, and ended up paying for the program. And then from there on, Michigan, with the work and with Ian, became very close friends of mine. With that work, made Michigan Chiropractic Council the largest organization within 4 years. I was very active in the 60s with Palmer. I became the Michigan Palmer alumni. As a side note, we were involved with DE. Jerry Klum was at Life, along with Riekman and Lloyd, I forget his name, Neil Lloyd, who I just talked to recently at Life Force. And they came as students, and I was talking. It's like Jerry Klum was printing stuff on the hospital steps that were derogatory to medicine and stuff, and he finally got called before the Palmer, and they were going to expel him. But I happened to be the president of Michigan Palmer alumni, and at that time I had like 25 students going to Palmer. So I flew to Davenport, pleaded his case, and he never did get expelled. And that if he'd have been expelled, he was one of the first professors at Life, and he's the one that took over at Life West and started when we started it. So rather interesting ramifications. Then we didn't have Palmer, so when we got Life's going in 74, then we started all our meetings going, because I used to do student recruiting programs at my home.
So pause for just for a moment. So you got the college going in Life. Like, how did that come about? Like, how does one, were you going to say something?
I want to go back one more step.
One more step? Okay.
Where you were talking to the Grostic people on the MCC, what made it important for them to give up their name in your mind?
So that they wouldn't have any power. I wanted to hold the power.
Yeah.
In a negotiation, they only saw that if they could do this, then they would be able to accomplish what they want. They were very involved in legislation, even though there were only 14 people. And they had a person on the Board of Examiners, which was Warren McAlpine, that's who we took Ann up to Flint to get her neck set after she had her injuries and stuff like this. I had relationships with these people. They were willing to do anything to make sure they protected chiropractic. Because in 1960, when I graduated from Palmer, just 2 years before that, Michigan did not accept Palmer grads for coming into the state. And so they had formed the Michigan Academy of Chiropractic, and they had the Michigan Association of Chiropractic. By the time I came in, they talked about merging now, because the Academy made them force the issue that they would accept Palmer grads. So when they merged, this small Grostic group would not merge, and they formed this because they believed in holding on to the principles of chiropractic. And so we had them, remember, and I had the ICA people that thought that, and the DE people. So I had enough numbers if we pulled one organization with them, and they chartered it already, really make it happen. But I would not, they were probably too conservative to relate with anybody else, because being that they were AO people, they had a harder time seeing beyond themselves.
Yeah.
And I was more open in chiropractic to chiropractors and just being our philosophy. I was not involved in the techniques. In other words, the technique isn't what would bring me together with people.
Yeah. Do you play chess?
I have played chess.
Yeah.
Not very well. I don't like to think.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't like to think several moves ahead.
Correct.
Which is what you do. maybe not on a board, but
it's interesting. I have a great ability to see future ramifications. Whenever we were having meetings, anything was decided, I could tell you the outcome that's going to happen if you follow this direction. And because of that, I was able to, while thinking I'm leading, but I was able to influence the people I'm working with to go certain directions.
So do you, I think I know the answer to this, but do you think that the clarity of seeing how things unfold, how does that fit into your practice, like through your meditation or through your visualization? Because I know that's a big part of, you feel like you're directed that way. Like it all kind of rolls back into that awakening from to the source.
Well, to think of visualization meditation, I really wasn't doing much of anything like that until years later when we started Inner Winners. When we started getting exposed to further principles and stuff. I just think a certain way.
My question, you were just going to go right into, when we started life, and then you were going to go into a story. But I mean, I feel like we got to pause for a moment. Someone to say, I'm going to start life. There's a lot in that. So where did that start? Or how did the thought of like, hey, let's start a chiropractic college?
Well, at the time, Palmer was becoming more liberal. They started to use PT and stuff like this and became concerned about what's going to happen to chiropractic. And so we're involved with DE. And Dr. Sid, being the leader there at DE, said we're going to have to start a school. There was this discussion at different times. Then we went summers, like I think 3 or 4 summers, to Ormond Beach with a group of us. There was about 8 or 9 of us. Sid's discussion was, we've got to start a school. We got to start a school. Every time we go to DE, he'd have a new location. Look, what do you think about this place for a school? What do you about this place for a school? I really wasn't that much involved. Ian became more of the type of person that would be involved with Sid, doing all these various things about that. And we had by this time we had developed ourselves. It was myself, Ian, Jimmy Gregg, and John Hoffman. We became a foursome. We met all the time. We exchanged all our thoughts, built our practice the same way. And so each of us did different things representing. And so Ian was the one more, but was the key person working with Sid all the time, following him everywhere, wherever he went. He'd come in town sometimes beforehand to see stuff out. So it's interesting when I mentioned that even when we started the school and got it going and all the stuff that would be needed for accreditation, Ian followed Sid everywhere. He made sure all the time it was being done to the best way. And in fact, Tom Morgan was one of the founders also who put money in the beginning like this and got it started. He had told Dr. Sid, be very careful of the Michigan group. They're going to take over. It was the 4 of us. And we always talked about, we traveled in packs like the wolf. And we stuck together on everything. And that gave us the power, which literally became the group out of the 4 of us, and then from Inner Winners and stuff that we developed, that when the school came into crisis, I had people I could pull on that had a basic understanding of our philosophy, the inner-directed life, and what was the big idea. What was this thing that lasting purpose was all about? What was DE about? And even today, I don't even know if the people that are in DE, if they even know what it's about, or if they even understand lasting purpose.
What does that mean, lasting purpose? Tell me what that means to you.
Lasting purpose was to lead an inner-directed life through love, serving, giving, and doing. And in the latter years of Dr. Sid on the campus, before all the things happened in 2002, and I was walking the parking lot with him, and I didn't normally walk the parking lot with Dr. Sid. Tom Morgan used to be the concept. They'd always be out walking all the time. And when Morgan was gone from the scene and he had his problems and ended up at Palmer, affiliating with them, Ian walked with the parking lot. And then when Ian moved in his transition in life to a higher level, he occasionally walked with me. And so the last time he walked with me, that's when he told me, he says, the best I can define lasting purpose is to do the will of God through love, serving, giving, doing. And so this takes me back to when I'm 14. It's never changed. Mm-hmm. That anchor, the thing that my focus of my whole life was to do the will of God, connect people back to source. That's what the adjustment did. D.D. Palmer talked about it. It's why he didn't even know if you should make it a religion or not.
I mean, I remember conversations with you about different people in different professions with that same philosophy and how they are different above. I think we were talking about an orthopedic surgeon one time about their technique, and he was like, yeah, they're almost like he alluded to that special something that, BJ talked about, and it's that.
There was a time when I was sitting in a hot tub talking to an orthopedic surgeon, and he says, under the laws of the managed health care, he says, I have to go ahead and do surgery on somebody according with the insurance pays when I know that's not the right thing. He says, I know sometimes when there's something that nobody else can see, but I can see it. I just know there's something there.
Yeah.
He said, this is not unique to chiropractic. This is why, to me, it's like my life isn't chiropractic. Chiropractic is a vehicle to connect people back to source. I don't know of any better way in correcting a subluxation. BJ said, who is the closest to God, the sage that's sitting in the meditating room or the one who just got his atlas adjusted? It's pretty powerful.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just, looking at all those points, like through what you just mentioned, those were all times where that initial reconnecting people to source theme surfaces. You went back to Michigan and you were just a kid, and you decided to organize younger doctors. For what? What would drive that, to want to organize that?
I don't know what would drive it. It's just the fact that they're all older, and whereas the young doctor, and I was probably younger than any of them, organizing. Right. And it's like, where do we share a social life together? Where do we share our ideas? Where do we get to know each other? Even after that, we were involved with DE. Life was not opened yet. We called chiropractors that were affiliated of like mind of ourselves, and we would meet at Wednesday, and it was just a bar. And I'd organize it. They'd come after hours, and we just socialize, be together, together. It, to me, it's like, and then I used to hold parties at my house. The chiropractors get together. And to me, it's like we were family. And like today, like through the years, the one that took over doing that after I left Michigan was Dr. Lupel. He'd constantly be inviting all the chiropractors home, to his home. And it's that need to come together is what was enabled life to continue on today.
Right.
You can't see, the thing is, not knowing like all the stuff I reflect back in my life. You can't do this alone. The magic words, I need help. We all need help moving forward. See, like when I threw the people out that came down to my office about advertising, I already knew a chiropractor who was a radical. His name was Charlie Atwell. He'd already took the board to court. Just, they couldn't stand him rapping his face. Well, I happened to be friends with him. He was an older guy, and I knew the test stuff. I says, I'll throw him out of my office too. It's like, and to me, you learn from other people, you associate, you make connections and things. I was just having a meeting with a fundraiser that came to our life board meeting last 2 weeks ago down in Bonita Springs, and when I went up to talk to her, and I was talking to her, and I said, everything you're talking about in raising funds, I said, the way you raise funds is you bring people into your dream. She said, oh, that's fantastic. I've never, and she, to the rest of the meeting, she said, I'm going to use what River said about bring people into your dream. I said, it's the art of negotiation. I said, I'm the biggest fundraiser there is at life. I've raised more funds than anybody. I said, it's the art of negotiation. The only way you do it is you bring people into your dream. When they're in your dream, they want to be part of it. And it wasn't like I took the class.
How to bring people into your dream.
Dream 101 or something. It's just like, that's what I did all my life.
I was going to say, that had to start at a young age when you were like, oh, hey, we should all get together. You
Yeah.
had a dream, and then you were able to, people are like, oh yeah, I like that. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Seems like a common theme along the way of being able to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Were you going to say something else, Bruce?
No.
You know, I kind of stopped you about, okay, starting life, and okay, so you started life, but was it like super easy? So you guys got together, Sid's like, we need to start a college. So was it easy, smooth sailing? Like, what was that like? So, you know, Sid with the idea, and then there was a group of you co-founders that were like, yeah, I want to do it. I'd like to hear a little bit about what it was like starting a college, because it's kind of a big deal.
It was very easy for me, very difficult for Dr. Sid. Yes. We're the supporters. You tell us what to do. We're the busy bees going out doing whatever we have to do. He had to think. Well, what he had to do is get a group of us to put $10,000 in. Well, 1973 or something, 4, I had 6 children. I'm trying to feed everybody. So $10,000 then is equivalent to $75,000 today. And if I walked up to you and said,
Right.
"Need $75,000," I didn't have $10,000 in the bank. The answer was okay, without thought. It was, okay, we got to do this. And so to do it, we had to do various things. It's like an example, we had to build a library. A library consists of so many books. Doesn't matter what they are. But you had to have so many books. So we went around to different schools, University of Michigan, all around. Any old books you want to get rid of? I remember being at a DE meeting one time. We got a call from Emory. They have a whole bunch of books you can come and get. So we left the DE meeting, got a big truck. I remember one time getting a big U-Haul truck of books and all kinds of old stuff that people, tables, anything, and we trucked it all out there, put it in the school. Here it is. We got it. We didn't have like when you open up the library, you have to have bookshelves. Now we have books. So we got bricks, boards, like 2 bricks, board, some bricks, put the books on the board. There's our library. I remember the big thing when we had because this building that we got was a workman's compensation or something in the back. Unemployment people would come in there. And so Dr. Sid would show the people, any visitors to school, see this fine school we have? And the restroom in the back, it was very, very nice. And everybody, whenever they would see the school, he'd always take them to the bathroom, the restrooms. These are the nicest restrooms at any chiropractic college. That's what. In fact, you could still see the restroom today in the Learning Center building. That's what it's called today. Mm-hmm. But it's like you just rise to the situation. It's like whatever look positive, amplify it, and you do whatever's necessary. It's like, and to me, it's like we didn't have accreditation. We'd send students there. No, we'll get it accredited. We'll get it accredited. And by a lucky stroke of luck, CCE says they were forced to recognize the ICA as an organization and allow a member from the ICA to pick somebody to come onto this CCE. And so ICA picked John Hoffman. So John Hoffman went on representing our point of view, but he had the ability to connect.
Wait, stop for it. So John Hoffman, when you talked about your little pack of 4 with your principles and that, he was in that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just putting that in there. John Hoffman was in that pack of principles, and you guys all stuck together. So now he's on.
So now he's on CC.
Okay.
And he had the ability to connect with people, socialize. He didn't look at people as bad guys. I would connect with them. He would talk to the people at the bars at CC, how he could help them in their practices and things. And because he got a good accord with CC, Sherman College got accreditation and Life got accreditation, and it all came back to John Hoffman negotiating, bring them into the dreams. They all had a dream about a good practice. How do you do this? And he would help them.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too, on that helping each other. There's not a sense of competition. It's like we need more people thinking this way and more people being exposed to waking up to the source within, that it's not exclusive to us. The more we can have, the better things are for everybody.
When you mentioned competition, this is a side note because this is funny. Jimmy, John, and Ian would meet every day for lunch. We would meet once a week for Friday for dinner for years, and I would usually meet them one lunchtime because I had a home practice and I didn't like to leave my home. But I'd come to lunch, and Jimmy Gregg would come in. He said, well, how many did you have in this morning? He said, I had like 212. And hop and walk in. How'd your day go? We had 230 this morning. And Jimmy Gregg says, oh, yeah, I remember. I forgot. There was 10 people walked in right after that because Jimmy's going to have more than John. And this is our little fun things that we talked about competition. Anyway, that was just a side note of the funny things that we all do.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just like the power, once again, of the wolf pack. And that's what was formulated. And that's what enabled life. Life University wouldn't exist if it wouldn't have been for the four of us. Mm-hmm. We were the pack that made it all happen. Jimmy was very good at going around to every D meeting and putting the pressure on people, sign pledges, do all those various things, get money in, good fundraisers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the things that you described, throwing people out of your office, and the oldsters did the same thing. Like, there was people that had some fire in their bellies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That and I mean I guess that that idea of being connected to source and realizing that this is what's happening on the outside is totally opposite of that. It's like, well, of course you would have fire in your belly for that.
Well, that's interesting thing is like I don't look at myself as different. I assume everybody else operates the same way. It's like so I don't have to have that measurement. It's like when they were doing this vaccination thing out in California and chiropractors were complaining. I said, what'd your state legislator say when you talked to them? How much money did you give them? Oh, I didn't give them any money. You don't give them any money, but you expect them to listen to what you have to say? It's just like we had our state reps come to our office and talk to our patients. They're looking for votes. We give them the checks, things like this. So if there's something, I want them to ask me the question. But we organize ourselves this way to do it. Like in Michigan, when we had the Michigan Chiropractic Council, I was the political action committee. I collected all the money from chiropractors and then gave it out to our people, lobbyists and stuff, so that we could have the best legislators on the payroll. And then when we had problems going on with insurance companies, I got the idea, well, then we need to start suing insurance companies. So I formed a legal action committee. And that still is in existence. Those could still exist in Michigan right now in this merged new organization, the things that we started back then. It's just like, oh, we need to do this, and we did it. It isn't like I got this, I'm something special. I would think everybody else would be thinking the same thing. I just happen to say it.
Yeah. What was the story with when you guys were meeting with the insurance companies to get basically accepted into insurance? Because the insurance didn't pay for anything with chiropractic.
Well, they were paying. They were having a difficult time. It was an interesting thing because we had this one law firm that was working with our legal action committee. They also did malpractice against us too. And I'm talking to the attorney, and I said, I don't understand this. It's like you represent people that sue us because they got a rib that was cracked. I said, you go to a medical doctor, they take a saw and they saw your rib open so they can work on your heart or something in your chest. I says, if you are subluxated, you might have to have a rib crack to get the subluxation corrected. That's how I thought. It's like, to me, it's like all the way along, because for many years I represented chiropractors in malpractice lawsuits because I was used to be chair of the board of examiners and stuff like this, and I had a good history saying that I was very well qualified. And so I I went to court a lot of times representing chiropractors. And, I had to quit doing it because I didn't want to start. I didn't think it was good karma.
Yeah.
I would like to go back. So when you were, which I think is really interesting, that just hearing you when you started the college and you're running around grabbing books and you don't have bookshelves, and it started out as a thought to then you guys are all running around to make it happen. What do you think now? I mean, even before now, but like now, you just told me like we redid the rugby field. What do you think? I mean, like you were there when it was talked about as an idea, and then what it is now. Like, what does that feel like to you?
Okay, let's put it this way. I'm opening my office in 1964. I'd been with another chiropractor. I search around for an X-ray machine. I finally find one, and it's an old X-ray, and I bring it in, and I have to put lead all around the head of it because the radiation's going everywhere. And when I take a cervical X-ray, I think it took like 5 seconds to take a cervical X-ray, and I'm thinking, I'm happy. I got an X-ray unit, and then finally one day, an X-ray company opened their office across the street from me. He said, "Oh, well, let me get you a new X-ray machine." Okay, I'll work it out. I said, "Okay." So I get a brand new X-ray machine. I'm taking an X-ray on a patient, and he's standing there, and all of a sudden, the tube is supposed to be cooled down by oil. It explodes in the room. It's a brand new thing, and oil's everywhere. And I'm thinking, I'm standing behind. I said, "Is that patient taking a leak or something?" I walk in, there's oil everywhere, and I say to the patient, "Okay, that's fine. Here, step over here now." And so in '64, I got this beat up thing, and I'm happy. And it's now 1980, and I'm in 4,200 square feet of professional building with the latest of everything in chiropractic. 4 Zenith Thompson tables, everything, the best of everything. How did it feel? Felt good. It felt good when I started. So I'm equating that. How does it feel to see this? Why wouldn't you grow? Why wouldn't I think I would grow in practice? I never, I wasn't thinking, well, this is the best I'll have, this old X-ray. No, it's just, this is what I have today. Oh, no, this is what I have today. Oh, no, this is what I have today. Now I got 4,400 square feet, and this is what I have today. I got 30-car parking lot here. And when I moved out of my home, I left a full court, basketball court, for my kids to play basketball on. So what I see at life is this is what happens when you do all these various things. This is not a trick. And Dr. Sid says, people don't understand. It ain't working here. We have magic here. This is what happens when you got the magic. And I relate this all the time when I take a kernel of corn. I says, this kernel of corn's got magic in it. And do you think you can find it? You pulverize it and you won't find the magic in it. But you put it in the ground. If you water it, fertilize it, cultivate it, weed it, the magic makes it grow. And that's precisely what happens in my office in 1964. It grew because I did those things. The magic makes it happen. At life, we started this thing with no other thing except to do it. And the magic made it happen so that all of a sudden we get to around, year 2000 or something, 20,000, 2000? There's 5,000 students at life. Why would that happen? Why not?
Yeah. So do you want to say anything before I was going to go in?
Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, let's go back to how we started this. Now you're sitting in Life lost its accreditation. Hey, it's growing, it's good. And then boom, Life lost its accreditation. And it could be no longer be that vision of what it was. So I'd like to go back to that moment and tell us when you said, we didn't come this far. No, so can go back to that moment, say what you said, and then tell us, put us in your shoes on that moment, that day, and then where you went from there.
I'm going to go back to when you said in 2000, when life lost its accreditation. We were notified. I was here in Georgia at the time. I was living in Florida, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm talking to Dr. Sid, and he says, yeah, we lost our accreditation. We need to, and I'm really concerned. And I talked to Dr. Rob, and I says, I think he'll commit suicide over this. This is really serious stuff. So I'm talking to Dr. Sid, and he says, yeah, I want you to come to we're going to have a school assembly. You stand behind me and say, everything's okay. I said, okay, thank you very much. I called John Hoffman back. I says, you don't need to come fly down here because we're not standing behind Dr. Sid and say everything is okay. It's not okay. And so at that particular time, after that, Rebecca Ray was the chairperson of Life, and she's going to quit. I said, no, stay with it. I'll help you. No, I'm stepping down. You'll have to become the next chair. And I said, okay.
You were on the board at that
I'm
time.
on the board.
Yeah.
I'd been on it since the beginning. So there's like a handful, 6 people, I don't know. So we're on the phone, and we have to get a new board member, a chairperson. So the judge, we had a judge that was on the board. We let him conduct a meeting so that we'd have a meeting on the phone. And we had the vote, and it came out a tie between me and Dr. Botwell. And so the judge said, well, we'll have to take it up at our board meeting. We're having a board meeting. It was coming up in a week or so. So we're at the board meeting, and I say, the judge is supporting Dr. Botwell. He's a judge, was a friend of Dr. Sid and all this kind of stuff. And so we got our votes, and I said, before they started, I said, if it comes out a tie, I'll give my vote to Dr. Botwell. So then Botwell spoke up, right? No, if it's a tie, I'll give my vote to you. So we voted. It was a tie. And the judge says, well, it looks like, Ribley, you're the new chairperson because Botwell said he's giving his vote to you. This is an action.
Right. Right.
And so all of a sudden, I'm now chair of this thing, this board. And as it went down, because we had to get a new president, Sid was going to have to step down or get fired by me. I'm on the phone. We're having a school assembly, and we have to have a president. We had found a president. The attorney worked with it. He was coming on campus, and he had been at Palmer. And the word had come out from some from a faculty that he had done some crooked things. And so our attorney says, you can't let him become the president. I notify him he's not going to be brought in. I said, we haven't got a president. We got to find, so I said to Jerry Club, we have to find a president. We have to find a president. Who can we have? Jerry said, well, my brother-in-law, he was a dean at Life West. See if he'll become president. So he says, we get him on the phone. He says, yeah, I'll become the president, but I can't come for so many days, So I have to get up and announce it. I says, okay. So I get on the phone to Dr. Sid, and I said, we want your resignation or we're going to fire you. And I said, what will it take? They said, I need something like 500,000, 700,000. I don't know what it exactly was anymore. I need it delivered today. Okay. So I talked to the attorney, yes. So I get on, announce that Michael Schmidt is the new president. And then so that afternoon I have to meet with the attorneys, and we have to get the money and pay Sid off, so he'll resign now. In resigning, he had to agree to dissolve the board of members of Life and Life West, who are the ones that picked the trustees, because it was done by his 3 stooges he had on these member committees. So anyways, with that, Michael Schmidt did come in. Cleveland College came in and said, we'll take over the campus. We had like $15 million or $17 million in escrow, which you have to finish graduating the last student that came in. And so Sid said, we got to find some way to get this money out of here. So anyways, that didn't happen. Cleveland comes in, and Michael Schmidt's president. I'm chair. And Cleveland comes in and says, we'll have to do some fiduciary judiciary investigation first before we do this. And so they left. And every time they call back, Michael said, you can't come today. And Michael says, I didn't come here to close the school. He says, I'm not going to let them on this campus. So then him and I resolved that it wasn't going to happen. Eventually, Ben Despain came in to become the president. And it worked its way to the point. Ben Despain had all this knowledge about life and chiropractic because he was dating a Logan student. And Ben Despain is also the guy that was on, they made a movie about, I forget the name of the movie. He was the one that hired a black coach in a white area. And they said, why did you do that? And he said, because it's the right thing to do. So anyways, as things unfolded, and we now have Ben Despain as president, things aren't looking good and all this kind of stuff. Our student enrollment's not growing. And then he makes contact with the Kaiser Collegiate System, and he's going to get a deal out of it for himself. Position in Kaiser Collegiate, and they come in, they got a check sitting there that they're going to do this all with and everything else. That's when I said, it's not happening. And then after I said that, because I got nobody that will support me in this, because everybody says, you have no choice, you have to make it happen. And, well, it's not going to happen. And then I said, what do you think would happen if Dr. Riekman ever came to our campus? We hired him to help us out. I said, anything could happen. And I'd heard on the grapevine that possibly he might be leaving Palmer, but nobody seemed to know that. And I just, maybe. So I found out after I did this all that we had 30 days left of money left to pay faculty, and after that we didn't have anything left. That's why I had the yellow sweats that weekend. And, it became history because we had a lot of people who came in. We eventually went to court, got an injunction from a federal judge. We got the injunction because the state of New Jersey came down, reviewed our schools, says they find the school very good, didn't see a reason why. And the federal judge says, if it's good enough for New Jersey, it's good enough for everybody else. This type of thing. So we had a lot of good things happen. A lot of heroes came out of the woodwork. And then eventually we had a clinic in Costa Rica. And however it happened, it got closed, and Ben Despain all of a sudden got ownership of it. And we eventually legally got it all back again. It's, I don't know, just kind of a lot of history there.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of stuff in there that happened.
Right.
it's like a theme again is emerging for me is like where you were in the board meeting and you said, if it's a tie, my vote's going about well. And then he said the opposite. And this hit me like the control versus trust. Like there's one might think he's doing that to control the situation or the outcome. And the other is, well, he's trusting to see if he makes a move, there's going to be some other consequence or subsequent outcome of that. Like, again, like thinking like that.
Right.
It's interesting.
My life wasn't to become a board chair. My life was to continue the process of whatever we're doing, and whatever I'm supposed to do, I'll do. So Botwell didn't make it. The board of members still existed. It hadn't been dissolved yet. And subsequently, through Dr. Sid, they took Sigafus off the board, Paul Penn off the board, and we had a banker off the board. And he put three of his stooges on the board. They showed up for the board meeting, and I wouldn't let them in the room. They came. We're the new board member. I says, you're not coming to my board meeting. You can't come in. Wouldn't let them in. So they didn't get in. And they never got in. And they eventually were not on the board. And every board meeting, Dr. Botwell would meet with Dr. Sid about how they could sabotage what we were doing. They'd meet with attorneys, they would meet there. And then before the end of the board meeting, Botwell would get the floor, and then we would all just leave. The board meeting was over. For a year, we never ended a board meeting with a motion. We ended it with Botwell talking to himself.
I think it's hearing that. It still goes back to when you were in Michigan in your young 20s of there's this natural innate of where you think isn't everyone like this, but you can see this has been with you your whole life from when you were young all the way up to now. Your ability or your willingness or your drive to just follow that inner urge or drive or inspiration of it.
Do you feel when you look at a student at life in the same sense as you look at one of your patients when you were in practice? Like you're awakening up from that source within, like through that and through your life, you're continuously putting that energy into the world, and now it's through the products that come out of life.
I don't think I've done that much thinking. My thing is not to think. When a person graduates from life, I just says is that we got another warrior, another one on the team. I don't know what I thought in chiropractic. It's like we just want to see people.
Mm-hmm.
Want to see people. I practice GPC, put a box out there. People pay what they could pay. When they started putting quarters in, my mother would start, because my mother worked out, she says, they've only put a quarter in. I said, Mom, don't tell me that. I'll probably subluxate them the next time.
Yeah. So it was more about not more, but it was obviously your, waking up to your own source, like coming into your own source. But that's the trust.
I would think that I look back and I start to see how I conducted my life. And I could see the reflection of how I conducted it and why I do what I do. But when I was in the present day moments, I was just doing what I do. And it was no like, this is a really good way I'm thinking. It's like, and then when I look back, I said, that was a really good way of thinking. And it's not like extrapolating things in the future. And it's like, I'm going to throw this one out just because this just happened last week. And I've talked about Elon Musk, the richest person on the planet. Great-grandmother's a chiropractor, grandfather's a chiropractor, his uncle's a chiropractor, and his
pretty well known too.
Yeah,
the Haldeman family.
Yeah, and his family, Elon Musk's mother, May Musk, nutrition, master's degree. So knowing all that, for over a year, I've been talking when Dr. Riekman was there, and they said, they belong to the other camp, can't talk to them. It's like, it's chiropractor. They come from a chiropractic family. What are you talking about? So this has been going on, and I bring it up every board meeting, all our development meetings and everything else. I finally sent a letter to the executive thing before this last board meeting. I said, if we invite May Musk to come and speak at assembly or something on nutrition, and we have a nutrition department that fosters the same ideas that she has, and she's willing, normally she charges $100,000 or more to come, and she's willing to do it for $25,000. What would be a con of that? It's like, not to get anything out of it, just to do it, to make a connection with this family. And so this time we had somebody there about fundraising. And when she was finished, I brought this whole thing up again. I said, remember what she said? You make connections. You bring people into your dream. Not for any other reason. And then when in your dream, they may see, oh, wow, I need to do this for my dream. That's our dream. And through all this persistence and stuff, they decide, we're going to put some money aside. We're going to go ahead and we're going to see if we can get May Musk to come to the campus for no other reason but to come.
Right.
So to me, it's like it's this constant thing. It's like if you see a good thing and you want to make it happen, you keep working at it. It's like, hey, like this is what to me happened with life. You saw good. When we were going through accreditation, and CC wasn't the big problem, SACS became the big problem because you had to have so much money in the coffer. And we had to raise $5 million in 90 days. And where did these people come? They came out of the woodwork. But the interesting thing is when I'm sitting with the committee from the Department of Education, SACS, reviewing us, and they tell me, I don't know how you did it. All we can say is God's working on this campus. Now, these are just people
Right.
looking at us and saying, God's working on this campus. It's like,
Yeah. So I want to stop right there for just a moment. And you were talking about all that, talking about the whole process. And then you reached to a point that you hear that. And just a little bit into your own personal, was it easy in a walk in a park? And I feel like that's a really big moment that was happening. And all of us have that at some point in our life, in whatever capacity, in our business, in our personal relationship, or somewhere where it feels really hard. So for you, how did it feel and how did you get through that? Because to feel like you have, like you said, no, we're not going to do that. And you held on to it. So was it super easy just how you moved forward from there, or how did you be able to stay strong in your conviction of it?
remember when I said, no, we're not going to do it. Innate didn't bring us this far to drop the ball, to leave it go. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
Innate didn't bring us this far. It was trust in the Spirit. And did I get the yellow sweats physically, emotionally? Yeah. The physical part of me says, my God, what are you doing here? But the other part is that, yeah, you trust the process. You trust the process. This is all the way through. It's like, is there work? Is there tears? Is there all these things? Is there stress? Yes. But what is the whole thing behind it is you're trusting the process. God's working in your life. God's working in this. And it's like, why wouldn't it happen that way? Mm-hmm. Why would the Spirit, why would Innate bring us this far through all these years, build us to the biggest thing in chiropractic? Everything depends upon what life, whether drugs came into chiropractic, everything all would depend on what happens at life here. That's how big it is. Why would Innate bring us this far and say, well, you're on your own now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes when we're in those moments, like I said, we all have those moments when we're in them. You had all of the things that could happen, mm-hmm. and then I can trust in the Spirit. And I feel like that's even why you got in there, the innate intelligence, trusting in the source and doing that all the way through. That has been, because, whether it's one of your values or one of the things that when it gets really hard, you are like, no, I trust in the Spirit. I'm going to keep trusting in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a deterrent. It's like,
right.
Of course it's hard.
See, through the course of all these things, there's a lot of things that happen that might be considered negative about what people did. And to me, everybody's doing the best of what they got. That's the cards they were dealt. And to me, it's like you got to weed your garden. You can't let them take over, but you recognize that's what they did. And it's like what Dr. said. We would not be here even having this conference call right now or discussion if he wouldn't have done what he did. And what he did also created other problems, and it wouldn't have created the scenario we're in today and our opportunities to even grow higher. Mm-hmm. And so in the worst scenarios, there's not a negative. Mm-hmm. I remember, I'm always at the right place with the right people, with the right time, with the right things to happen. So no matter what's ever happening, it's the constant saying thank you. There's the gem in this. I'm feeling the hurt.
Yeah.
I feel the pain. You can't take your emotions out of it, but you also are giving thanks because there's a greater good coming out of it. Mm-hmm. And we've all heard those stories before. Right.
That's like the Marcus Aurelius quote I read this morning. The impediment creates the action.
Yeah.
And, the obstacle or blockage is what promotes the movement.
Yeah. There was a book we used to use in Interwinters where Conflicts Clarify. Mm-hmm. Conflicts gives you the ability to create a new way of understanding. You have to have that dynamic energy going in.
Yeah. It's like a plot line in a story.
Yeah.
Antagonist, nothing moves it along.
We didn't actually, which is kind of just a side thing off of this, because then I want to circle back to something else. But you've mentioned a little bit here and there about inner winners, and just kind of a little bit like what is inner winners, and then what made you do it? Because you said you still do it on some level. Like, kind of just talk a little bit about that. So if no one knows what that means or what it is.
Well, inner winners. There's a book, The Bigness of the Fellow Within the BJ, and there's a first chapter. That's something. Awakening to that something within. Let it become the guiding light of your life. And it probably was a precursor to that when we did Stuart Wild's program, and we out and did some experiential training programs, firewalking and stuff. And I saw the potential of that program could be used similarly to support a person having a experience in that something and getting a wow. But I didn't know how it had happening. And we were at the Grand Canyon, not Grand Canyon, it was either Bryce or Zion. We were on horseback riding, and all of a sudden this thing unfolded to me how to do this with chiropractors. And to now understand, to do this with chiropractors, and I'd say, do what? Well, a ropes course. Well, I have to hire someone to do a ropes course, so we hired someone to do a ropes course. They have a firewalk. I need to hire somebody to do a firewalk. I need somebody to help me. I'll ask Zigavus to come along. He's got a good name. So we have a meeting with 12 people, counting my family, our family. And it cost me like $15,000 to put this on. And we did. And out of that, it evolved to the where it is today. It's still existing. It's during that time, we've had times where we trained people to be working in inner winners. We trained people to do different things. We've had people that's been exposed to reading about leading an indirected life, but got the wow by attending a program where you experience leading an indirected life and seeing how you did things, how you make corrections, how you make your life more fulfilling. So that's where it's at to that point. And at this point now, we're working with Life University, Lasting Purpose Center, because this is the lasting purpose, to do the will of God through love, and working with them to bring it on to the campus so that we can start working with students and doctors. And we would not be doing an inner winners program. We would take it for a longevity, bringing it into the Life University where the lasting purpose is pronounced as its reason to be at life.
Mm-hmm. You want to say anything else to that? Okay. Well, then I want to just ask you what this would look like or mean to you, because you have everything that you've shared up to this point, and somewhere in the conversation you mentioned it's like a baton race, and I took the baton and I ran. And what does it mean to you? You got to pass the baton to someone. You are active in the college and with the chiropractic profession and students. What does passing the baton mean to you? Because you're going to pass it on to somebody else or to a group or something like that. What is passing the baton for you?
This is what to me is passing the baton, is that my days are numbered. And I know that like through inner winners and things that we do, it has a great effect on people's lives. It gave birth to the Australian Chiropractic College, Barcelona Chiropractic College. It kept life alive during its hardships when we hit the bump. And so passing the baton is I'm passing it on to life so it sustains itself and it continues to awaken within people. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at today. And pass the baton on so that it continues to go forward now.
Yeah, so passing the baton is just continuing the lasting purpose, because that's been your theme all the way through your life. Yeah, having somebody be able to do that, or have the college, an organization do that.
Yeah, opening up to source, like that's what it's always been.
To just say, in however this lands, like being your daughter and not knowing all the details of everything that you've been through, but I can look now from my life's experience and then looking at you and what you've been through, like it really hit me, like the whole idea of, and we talked a lot about that moment with life, and I can look at like, wow, like I had a moment was like every student that comes through there, like the ripple effect of you just staying strong in your principles, how that plays out into the world. So it's a pretty cool thing. And like you said, it's not like you're special, because everyone has that ability, and it's being able to have somebody have that strength inside of themselves, that they have that same power and ripple effect in their life to be able to do the same thing. Me being your daughter to witness, yeah, I see that. That's cool.
I think the defining moment of at least the subject of this was that point, in that board meeting. But when you look at how did the defining moments get there, there's a lot of them. And there's a process that you go through by following your, that inner message, which actually is the defining moment of,
right.
That awakening, or that understanding that you had at 13, the initial inspiration.
The interesting thing is that defining moment. There were a lot of defining moments. The last one was that one. There may be more yet.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh
yeah. Yeah.
That's as you go through life, there's wow. And then all of a sudden, no, wow.
Yeah.
No, wow.
It's like the X-ray machine. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Look.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Good.
Cool. Wrap for today.
Yep.